I'm Steven Schneider. I am a co-founder and CEO of Trio SEO. It's a blog writing SEO agency, and we focus on high quality content. So, driving the right traffic to your brand to convert browsers into buyers. So, big SEO nerd. My free time, I like to golf. I like to relax, hang out with my basset hound. His name's Hank.
Oh,
And
cute.
yeah, I'm a pretty big homebody. So, I mean, I love working. It's kind of like a big video game to me. So, um, yeah, but I try and get out as much as I can, weather permitting. I live up in Washington and Seattle, so we get like 2 months a year of sunshine, and aside from that, it's like gloomy and foggy and rainy and cold. So
Yeah, I like that outlook on work that it's kind of like a big video game. I used to get like really stressed out about my business and getting clients and like making my skills better and all these things. And then once I started treating it like an experiment and like looking at the actual data of my client acquisition processes or how my blogs were targeting in SEO and that sort of thing, it felt like, oh, okay, I can just like make little steps of progress every single week and get better and better and enjoy it. And it just
yeah,
is so much easier when it's like a game or an experiment where you're just collecting data and acting on it. Is that something that you like developed throughout your career? I've never actually heard anyone else talk about it that way except me.
no, I think it was like really. It's kind of a really nerdy thing. I'm sad to admit, but I used to be really addicted to video games, like in college. Mostly like RuneScape, if you're familiar with that. It's kind of like similar to like World of
Yes.
Warcraft, but
My
yeah.
friend is like a RuneScape nerd, and this entire
Oh
past
yeah,
couple of months like a new edition just came out, and he literally put a couch in his office
oh
where he
yeah.
has his gaming setup so his girlfriend can sit in there while he plays so they can hang out and he can still play.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're preaching the choir. So yeah, like in college, I hadn't played in forever. My friend's like, "Oh, you should start playing again." I was like, "Man, I can't. Like my grades are up. Like I can't get back into it." And then I did it for like a weekend, and I remember like it was like during like a double XP weekend, and I was like staying up all night. And my girlfriend was like, "So are you gonna like come to bed soon?" I'm like, "No, like I'm up for like 3 days. Like what are you talking about? Like this is what I'm like. This is the thing now." And she's like, "Oh my gosh." So I kind of had to like cut the cord on that, and that was actually like, around the same time of me starting my first business, and that was
Mhm.
kind of like how my addictive personality just kind of like let that one die, and then latched on to the second. And so I kind of always viewed it like that, especially that was around the same, like my first business was when I made money online for the first time. And like I saw that kind of transition to being a broke college kid to being like, oh, there's actually something here and I can actually like do this as a sustainable path. And so that's kind of where it really just kind of like fed into that entire vision of what I wanted and how I can get it. And I was like, oh, this is easy. Like I can figure this out now. Like this, I thought it was way more difficult, but it
Yeah.
wasn't.
And it's just as addicting to get that like
Oh yeah.
your first paycheck online and like seeing success. Yeah, it
I
feels
know.
so good. So what was that first business after college for you?
So that's how kind of how I learned SEO. A friend of mine and still a good friend of mine, mentor in college, was building affiliate sites, Amazon affiliate sites, back in the kind of Wild West era of SEO. And yeah, we were working on a class project together, and he mentioned that he had like this business on the side, and I was like, yeah, right. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're probably like, making $50 there, $50 there. And no, he was making like over 10 grand a month doing Amazon affiliate blogs.
In
And this is
college?
in college, yeah. And I was like, I was on this like finance MBA fast track. Like, I was a pretty studious person. And I was like, yeah, screw that. Like, I'm like everything I can to figure out what this SEO stuff is. And
Yeah.
yeah, he had a couple sites. Like I think yeah, combined they're making probably like 15 grand a month. And
That's
with the
amazing.
yeah, and with like the blogging kind of like world, it's similar to real estate. How if you have like an average monthly income of like say like $1,000 a month that a blog will make, you can sell it for like 30 to 40x that for a
Mhm.
flip. So if its site's making 10 grand a month, which is like a 1% site, you can sell it for like $300,000, like essentially from your portfolio value. So,
That's insane.
um, so I learned all that, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to focus anything except for like I went from sitting front of the class taking notes to like back of the class building blogs and like sort of listening. And my teacher would be like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, I don't worry, like I'm not worried about this. Like this is low priority."
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just that was how I I knew someone who was my age, actually he's younger than me, doing this thing and making more money in a month than I thought I was going to be able to make in a quarter. And I
Yeah.
was like, it's tangible, it's within reach. He's a smart guy, but he's not like Mark Zuckerberg. Like he's not like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not like it's just like out of reach for me. Like if he's doing it, I can definitely figure it out.
Yeah.
And SEO and blogging just seemed like it was like how like you're just writing an article, like it's just a blog and like this is working.
Yeah.
So yeah, long story short, we scaled that up. I started building that in college. We had about three to four sites combined, and then we merged with his other partner. And then over like a 3-year period, we had about 40 in our portfolio, and we scaled up to 7
so
figures.
many.
Yeah, we were doing
Wow.
about like 400 articles a month across the board. So
Holy shit. And you were writing all those articles by hand?
no.
Okay, I was like,
Um,
that's a
no,
lot. I would be so burnt out.
no. I did write a lot in the early days. Like the first website that ever made money was a barbecue website, like for barbecues and smokers and cooking. And I wrote a lot about barbecues. Like I
Rolls
always like to
eyes,
joke.
never wants to write
Yeah.
about a barbecue again.
No, I always joke that I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none. Like if I go to a party and I don't know anybody, I can like roll through this mental Rolodex of like whatever hobby they have. And like I just
Yeah.
have done an article or I've done keyword research on it for some point. I'm like, oh, you're interested in like the best spinning reels under $100, and I like insert SEO topic and like I don't know, just like this weird thing. But yeah, to your point, like no, we didn't write. We had a team of 30 people overseas plus writers on top of that. It was a massive operation. I mean, it was just like a complete like powerhouse of a system of business.
Yeah.
It was fun.
That's huge. Yeah. It kind of makes you wonder. There's all this advice out there that like you have to have a niche to be a marketable writer, but I don't. It depends on what you're doing. Like I am always like, that is not how I think of a niche as like a target so that you know who your ideal client is, so you can be connecting with the right people and pitching the right people and like creating a portfolio that attracts them. I don't see it as like you can only write in this box for the rest of your career and be bored. Like that is not ideal. No one wants that. No one wants that for you or from you.
Exactly. No, it should be.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the like more power to you. And that's kind of like you should essentially build your skill set, I think, around one thing. Like if that umbrella is going to be writing or SEO or however you want to like focus that true north, but you essentially want all of the sub areas within that to be like a Swiss Army knife. And that's how kind of how I look at it.
I like that. Yeah. It's a good visual for sure. How old were you when you got to the point where you guys were like 40 blogs, 400 articles a month?
I graduated college. I was definitely a delayed college kid. I was like, I took the 6-year path. So I graduated college at 22, 23, I think. So it was like right around that time. I graduated college and then we immediately went full time. And then it took about 1.5 years to reach our peak from there.
That's so fast though.
Yeah, it was fun. We just pretty much like everything we did, just reinvested every single dollar that we could to hammer down as fast as we could.
Yeah. And like at 24, I was like through hiking the Appalachian Trail being a total like bum of a person trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. That's hilarious.
I mean, yeah, just to each their own. That's kind of like I said, it was just such a addiction for me at that time. Like it's such a valuable thing. Like I woke up and that's like all I did. It's like I'd wake up early before class. I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I would work before class, and I'd go home and just like work until my wife told me to stop at like 7 o'clock. She's like, okay, cut the cord, you're done. But it was just so fun because like everything was such a input output mechanism where like the more that I worked, the more I got rewarded. So it was like this complete
it's like an
rush.
immediate reward too.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I could see how that would be addicting. That's how I felt when I like first started freelancing. I was working like 60, 70 hours a week. I would write for like 10 or 12 hours a day. I would spend like an hour or two networking. I would pitch for half an hour, and then I was writing like 2 to 4 blogs a day after that.
Yep.
And it was just because I was so obsessed with the fact that I had figured out how to make money online, and I just wanted to like constantly be on a big adventure where it didn't matter where I was. I could do whatever I want. I had enough money. And that was it. I was so eyes on the prize, and it was the perfect
Mhm.
vehicle that I needed. And that obsession drove me until I like got burnt out basically. And that's the cycle,
I
you
feel it.
know?
Yep. Yep. I couldn't relate more to that journey.
How, I mean, obviously you've gotten burnt out before. How have you been able to deal with that? Because you have had a sustained career. Like now you have another successful SEO based business. So you obviously bounced back. Do you have any hot tips, or is this just like, I don't know, it just happened?
um, I think the biggest thing is just like listen to your body. Like I literally had one yesterday where I go through these like spurts of workout. Like I just kind of like put my body to the max essentially, which isn't probably the healthiest in hindsight, but it's just kind of all I know where like I work 10-hour, 11-hour days and I work out in between. So my brain and my body just kind of like gets to this point where it's just like sleep. And I was like,
Yeah.
sign off Slack. I'll go take like a 3-hour nap, come back and I'll work and I'll went to sleep last night at like 7:30 and I wake up and I'm just like recharged. So I think the biggest thing is just not to push through those times. Like if I'm eating lunch and I'm like, wow, I'm so tired, but I have to do work. It's like, go sleep, like listen to your body,
Yeah.
recharge. There's really no reward in pushing through that and trying to like be this big ego person who works 50 hours a day. It's like, okay, like who are you impressing at that rate?
It's
Like,
not
good luck.
helpful. Like you're just
No,
tearing your body apart. Yeah.
exactly. So,
Yeah. I've noticed that as
uh,
well. I think the most important thing is like figuring out what your cues are, what your triggers are. Like,
yep,
how do you, when you get burnt out, like write down everything you're feeling. And then you can kind of tell, like, oh, maybe writing 10 hours a day is a little too much for me. Or maybe this
yeah,
topic is just not for me anymore and I'm just struggling to push through it. Or sometimes it's also like what you're putting into your body. Like if you're
yeah,
not exercising enough, like I get so sluggish if I don't work out and I feel like stiff and tired. Or like I have just realized this year that blood sugar is so
oh
important for
yeah,
me. I didn't know that I had an insulin issue. I just
oh
got
wow,
diagnosed this year. And I was like, oh, no wonder I'm tired all the time. I'm eating like bread for breakfast. And then I need to take a nap. Like, the light is on in the attic now, you know? But those are the things, like, I just thought that I was just tired all the time. And then I changed how I eat and I'm not tired all the time. And I just it didn't even cross my mind that what I was eating could affect me so much that every time I ate, I needed to take a nap. Like, that's insane. And it affects your
yeah,
work. Like,
oh,
I was
100%.
like, am I burnt out? Am I depressed? Like, why do I need to sleep all the time? It's just sugar.
It's the best. I mean, especially when you can figure out like those little life hacks in a way,
Yeah.
is like, wow, this little thing that I thought was going to be detrimental to my future is a minor change in my lifestyle. And now it's like you just gained all that time back essentially. I think I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you kind of write off that part of your future where you're like, well, I guess
Hmm.
I'll just be tired for the rest of my life. That's gonna suck. But also, I think we as humans are just, we're little data analysts. Like our brains are just these little data machines, and everything we're doing, like you said, with that inputs and outputs and rewards, it's all like contributing, and we're constantly, whether we realize it or not, gathering that data and processing it in our heads. And sometimes we are biased in that data if we're not actually
Sometimes,
looking at real numbers
always.
every day of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Like sometimes I'll think I've done really well with my diet, for example, and then I don't have numbers to prove that. I just got my first glucose monitor and I'm so excited to have actual numbers to be like, is this working? Or like I was doing my marketing for my business on Instagram for a while and I never like had tracked my time, or I was like looking at my stats, but not in a way that was making sense to inform whether or not it was worth continuing to do. And then I started doing content marketing on LinkedIn and I popped off like 5 times faster growth than Instagram ever was. And I could just feel it. I didn't even know from the numbers. And then I sat down one day and looked at my time tracker and my numbers from Instagram, my time tracker, and my numbers from LinkedIn. And I was like, I could spend an hour and get like 14 times the output from LinkedIn
Oh
as I
yeah.
was from Instagram. I abandoned it immediately. I was like, fuck Instagram. I'm never doing that again. Like, we're on LinkedIn now. Let's
Yeah, LinkedIn's
go.
the place to be. It's such like a slept on platform, which is kind of still nice for people who are actually leveraging it. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun to be kind of in that first or second wave, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
I'm so obsessed with it. That's like my video game.
Yeah, it was for a while too. That's where I got burnt out on it. Now I'm like, it's a chore, and I'm gonna have to go through waves.
Oh no. Yeah. I think there's kind of seasons and cycles for everything in business and in
Mhm.
life, you know? I'm entering my slowdown season. I'm like, let's schedule everything in advance. I am done. Like, I am ready for
Yeah,
my vacation in December.
I mean, that's kind of like, I mean, the content game is just such a hamster wheel. It's like
Yeah.
you just can't fall off, and if you do, like for how long, and then you come back, and it's like you lost that momentum, and
Mhm.
things change, and you're out of the loop, and so it's like this constant pressure. I think is maybe the right
Mhm.
word, but
Yeah.
yeah,
You
double-edged
really
sword.
have to find a system that works. Like, before I tried, this is not for me, but I tried time blocking. Some people love
Mm,
time
I
blocking,
love
and I
it.
think it
That's
can
my
be,
it's my bread and butter.
there's always somebody who's like obsessed with it and somebody who's like, I can't possibly do it. I like to have like, I know at this time I'm going to take my dog to the park and I know at this time I'm going to eat breakfast. And but like I like to have just a goal for the day or something. But I struggle with like if I have a time block for something else, like writing content for a client, for example, and I get a really good idea for a post to write on LinkedIn, I used to tell myself like, no, you can't write that post right now, put it in a note and write it later. And that note is the graveyard. Like everything I put in that note died. I never wrote it. It's all in there. You could write like 5 years worth of content from this note at this point. And
That's all the more reason to
instead,
make it not the graveyard. Come on.
instead I like switched to just writing it when I was excited. And then I use my LinkedIn posts also as like, because they're scheduled so far in the future, because I have so many scheduled, I use them as my newsletters as well. And
Mm,
then my newsletters are my blog. I just SEO, I just optimize it and add like FAQs, intro, outro for my blog. And then it all works together as a system. But before I figured that out, I was just like, content graveyard, you know?
no,
And
no, no.
so
You got to pull it back.
and then it's like, I mean, I'm going to get the client work done no matter what, because is
Right.
what pays the bills. Someone is expecting me to do something, but I am not going to get my content marketing done for myself if I don't do it
Yeah.
when I'm excited. But
Exactly. And I feel like, especially too, if you have a scheduling tool, like I use Publer,
mhm,
and I can just like go back and I'm like, oh, people in social media don't remember when I posted yesterday. Like I can go back 3 weeks ago, reuse it. Like
yeah.
if I'm just too lazy, like I have probably like 15 posts that are designed. Like I never post a text only post. I think that's kind of one of my downfalls is that like I have to have a graphic or a carousel. So I'm just picky about that. It's like no one cares
Why
except for
don't you
me.
do text only posts?
I don't know. It's like this like weird. I wish I had an
A
answer aside from like some
personal
stupid like
brand.
anxiety. No, it's like not even that. It's just like a really like I have enough. Like this is like the weirdest probably answer you'll hear, but like I have enough data that confirms that carousels perform better and like graphics perform better than text only, and I have enough on hand to where I can always repurpose something. So it's like I'll never not post a carousel or a graphic because I
Did
just know
you
it's going to perform
A/B
better.
test this with your own audience, or this is like best practice information you're getting from LinkedIn?
I haven't A/B tested things like specifically, but I've tracked like all my data from every single post I've ever published on LinkedIn over
Yeah.
almost 1,000 posts, and I just
Okay.
know that like if I post carousels are going to pop off compared to me writing like some long text thing.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
Especially now that the algorithm is more tailored toward reposting,
Hmm.
um, people want to repost pretty content. And, like they're not going
Hmm.
to repost like text only, so you just have a higher chance to get more reposts with that. So like
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it. It probably doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
I just think I ask because this year I just analyzed my entire past year of content, and based on LinkedIn's best practices, 50% of what I do should not be successful and is it would not be pushed by the algorithm or
that's
get
annoying
good
too. Like
reach. And the
like
thing
we met
is,
through
like,
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
no, the spread, like the actual data from my actual post, my actual audience, like all of my text posts did better than my posts with images and carousels. And
Yeah.
posts on Friday was my best, most popular post. I got like 50,000 impressions on a post that I posted on Friday. And LinkedIn's like, don't post on Friday. Nobody's on here. And
Oh
it's
no,
like,
weekends are like definitely the best time to post.
it's killer. And it's so
Yeah.
silly. And I was like, I went into LinkedIn as like a fun experiment. I'm just going to do what feels good to me, because on Instagram, I was trying to do all the best practices and it never worked out for me. And so I didn't do the best practices. And I'm like, wow, this is all like so contradictory. So whenever someone makes a comment like, I only post carousels because carousels are going to do the best, I always want to know, like, why do you think that and where did it come from? Because sometimes it's not true. If you think it's the
No.
best practice, it might not be true for your own audience. But it sounds like you're like actually analyzing your data, and that's good. You're doing good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's such a weird thing because like we know Blair. I think that's kind of how we got connected. Sure. And she just posts like, I mean, I love Blair if you're listening to this, but like she posts the most ridiculous stuff and it does so well and it makes me so
Yeah.
mad. And like we've talked about this so many times together. And like she posted about like toilets and it gets like 300 likes or something crazy.
Yeah.
And like I think the difference too is that her content and a lot of other people's content is tailored in such a way that that is her brand. Like her brand is the randomness, I guess, of what you're going to get. And like that's the fun part of engaging with people like that. Like hers is like a true social media platform account.
Yes.
I think that I probably cornered myself into being such a SEO tips, tricks, beginners brand where it's hard for me to like post about something that I'm working on, like the business that would actually like be fun for me to write about, because I know that the engagement would just be not there. And like maybe the metrics don't really matter. But I also look at like my personal brand trajectory as like when I first started on LinkedIn, it was like a 3-year experiment that I like mentally signed up for, and I'm on year 2. So like if I'm going to give myself everything I have in 3 years, like I want it to be on the best path forward. And like I think that's part of the journey, is like figuring out like what that path is defined as. So
Yeah.
who knows?
I think you can also kind of like
month.
You got to like tune your audience too. Like sometimes you got to switch it up and start engaging with people in a different way and you'll find new people. But it's all an experiment, and it's all changing all the time. Just like SEO. Like SEO's changed so much since you started. That was like, even since I started, I feel like it's changed so much.
Oh, without a doubt. Like it's changing every week, it feels like. But I mean,
it feels like it changes. The cadence of the change speeds up every year, right?
Oh, 100%. Like, especially with all the AI stuff, it's like you just have to strap in. But there's really no, like I always say, like you can't really reinvent the wheel in SEO. It's just a matter of how well you can do the basics and how long you can do them for. Like essentially, at some point, time becomes a competitive advantage. And so if you just, like anything in business, if you just do it longer and better than your competitors, like people are going to drop off because they get bored or they don't see results or they lose interest or they start doing PPC or whatever. It's like LinkedIn.
I mean,
people are
SEO
going to try to go to
is such a
Instagram
long
or Twitter.
Yeah. TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, SEO is such a long game. And also there's SEO for everything. Like there's SEO on LinkedIn. Like you can search up, you can optimize your profile for search. I've done it. I've taught people how to do it. It works. It'll get you inbound leads, let me tell you. And like, obviously there's SEO for Google. There's SEO for TikTok. But at the end of the day, it's all the same concepts, like the same basics, like keywords, strategy, longevity, repetition, consistency, right? These are all classic things that you
all
just have to build on. All the buzzwords. We should just have like an SEO. Do you have a carousel that's like SEO vocab?
I do. Yeah, I have a 99 top terms. It crushes every single time I post it.
Of course you do. Of course.
It was like, I made it like probably a year ago, and every time I post it, it's like one of my top performers.
You should post it like every quarter, at least once a quarter.
I post it like once a month.
Oh,
maybe not once a month, but like
never.
Whenever I need something. Well, like it's funny because like I just know that like some posts are going to perform better. So like if I'm like in a lull of traffic or a lull of followers, I'll just like throw in one of those, and I know it's going to be like it's a game. It's like a game. everything.
I do that too. I like to do rude reviews. I just take like a job,
That's a good one.
freelance gig listing that's like really poorly written or lacking
Oh my
all of the
gosh.
information that anyone would need. And I just say like how they could do better and what they did wrong. And they always pop, like people want to comment on that so bad. But also I'm hoping that like people who hire freelancers are also seeing these posts and maybe like gleaning something from it. Like someone once commented, like, you're never going to change an entire industry by writing these rude posts. You don't have to be such a bitch. And I was like,
watch
you know
me.
what? I will prove you wrong right now.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I also do the memes always. Like I have a carousel that's like the top, like my favorite. It's like my 15 favorite SEO memes, and it's like a compilation of the best SEO memes, and it's like the same ones every time, but people love it. And then
LinkedIn is severely lacking memes.
I know, right? And it's like
there's
you have a
gifs, but no memes.
Little spice. And the other one is like, oh, good morning to everyone except, and then you leave that blank and you just have people fill it in, like SEO edition. It's like, you just get some crazy responses there. Like
that's a good one. I really like that.
Yeah, you can use it for anything. Feel free.
I would love to. I'll tag you so you can comment on it.
Sounds good.
I want to know, I'm asking everybody this season, what is your hot take on AI? And I want to like ask you in two parts because I kind of want to hear your opinion on both of these angles because you have a hand in both. Like, do you think AI is going to replace freelance writers? Number one.
No.
That's what I want to hear. Why do you think that? Why not?
I just feel like, I mean, I guess I should say no with like a big, bold asterisk on it. But like, who knows? In 30 years, highly likely. Like, you know, if you think about the trajectory of technology, like, yeah, for sure. Next 5 years, no. 10, probably not. I just think that AI doesn't have the conversational human element. It's kind of like if you look at all of the like AI sci-fi movies and like all the things you probably shouldn't put your faith in when you look at the future, but you kind of have to some degree. It's like AI will always lack a human touch. And that human touch in written word is the vehicle for how humans communicate virtually. And without that, there is a massive disconnect. And so until AI can adopt conversational understandings and innuendos and like all of this like read between the lines sort of stuff, it's just not going to be there. Like we know that, like we see it a lot with like entry level writers where if they're writing an article about the basics of SEO, they are probably going to use terminology that is going to make them sound smart because they don't know what they're talking about, or B, they're going to repeat it because they feel like the user needs to know it. When really, as humans, like you can understand that if we're talking about SEO, you don't have to say SEO every sentence. So same kind of ideology applies to AI. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I also feel like they'll fix this eventually, but the mismatch between facts and like what AI actually spits out is a severe problem that just like cannot be solved right now. Like you can't just use AI and trust the fact. The other day, I Googled because my friend told me she ate Dave's Killer Bread for breakfast every day. And I was like, you do know Dave Killer Bread has a lot of sugar, like a lot of sugar. You should not be eating that for breakfast. It's why it's so tasty. You will crash. That's why you're tired. Like, stop eating that. You won't be tired anymore. Same with bagels. Like, bagels are awful. Don't eat bagels for breakfast unless it is a sandwich with like vegetables and meat on it. Like, and I told her that this bread was awful, and she was like, well, how much sugar is really in it? And I was like, well, let's just like Google it. I just remember it has a lot of sugar. And I Googled it and it told me that it has like 26 grams of sugar per slice, which is insane. That's like that's more than a can of soda.
Half a soda. Yeah.
There's no way. And I went to the Dave's Killer Bread website and it has like 5 grams per slice, but it has like 40 or 50 grams of carbs, which do turn into sugar and is more carbs than say Ezekiel bread, But at the end of the day, the fact is it doesn't have 26 grams of sugar in it. And Google's AI summary was like 26 grams of sugar. And I was like, this is dangerous misinformation.
The
You could be
TLDR is that
ruining,
Rachel knows her bread, guys. That's what we learned.
you just like fully ruin all of Dave's Killer Bread like sales from AI misinformation. Like
I
this
know
is not
the AI
good.
snippets are like just completely, and then it's kind of good too because like I was thinking about this the other day is that the AI overview is kind of like it's hurting AI's, it's hurting the perception of like how people engage with AI because it's like if the first product that Google releases, which is used by like billions of people, is
Yeah.
trash, people are
Yeah.
immediately going to think the AI is trash, which is like
Yeah.
such a weird way to look at like the future trajectory of like AI, where it's like Google creates a bad product, so everyone thinks that like the product itself of AI technology just sucks. It's like
Yeah.
we're going to see how it becomes adopted, and
I just feel like
who
Google's
knows?
doing too much all at once with their AI. They have like 50 new AI tools this year. I
Oh my
used
gosh,
the
you can
research
afford
paper
not
to
to though. It's the
podcast
arms
thing.
race. You have
I
to.
know it is. Yeah, it's like the space race all over again
It's the AI race.
with the AI race. But I mean, like some of them are cool. Like you can put research papers into one of their tools and it'll turn it into a podcast and you can literally listen to people talk about the thing.
Interesting.
And it was helpful. But at the same time, it's like a little weird. And there's just so much going on. Like there's too many AI tools out here.
I know it's definitely like the selling shovels during a or selling pickaxes during a gold mine or gold rush
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Totally. There's like a TikTok I follow that's like AI tools you should know about. And they're in like the thousands on those
Oh my
videos.
God.
And they've never repeated a tool.
I know.
And I
That's why
watch
I hate
every
like
single one.
there's so many like people. It's like the top AI tools of the week, and it's like just tell me the one. Like, give me which one do you actually you're using? Like, like I'm just gonna wait until like the tools I use just integrate AI, and then I have to relearn something. It's like the most frustrating thing ever.
That's so funny
It's
because
like
I
opportunity
wish
overload.
I like want my tools to stop integrating AI. Like some of them I'm like, this is pointless AI. Like I get why Notion added AI, but I
Yeah.
don't want it. Can we just turn it off? The button is in the worst spot. Like, please leave me alone.
See, I look at it more as not as like a direct use case, like immediately. Like even though like Ahrefs, which I use every day, all day, has an
Mhm.
AI feature, it sucks. Like
Mhm.
it's absolute garbage. Doesn't mean that I'm going to use it, but what I like about it is that the tools I'm using, their team is trying to figure it out, which just means like this time 3 years from now, like it's probably going to be really solid. So
True.
I would feel more put off if they were just like, no, we're not going to do it. Like our tool's good enough. It's kind of like you
Yeah.
have to at least hope that they're gonna, because eventually they're gonna figure it out. Like it's just a matter of time. So
That's true. That's true. And they kind of need
like
users to
and
test
Grammarly,
it
like
and tell
Grammarly's
them what's
crushing
wrong.
it.
Grammarly's been using AI for years.
Yeah, they're crushing the
And
game.
they're
Like I love
great.
that.
Yeah.
So it's like
Grammarly's my
look
favorite.
at that. So it's
Yeah.
like okay, perfect. Keep doing your thing,
Like,
Grammarly.
yeah, thanks, Grammarly. I used to write for Grammarly and that
Ooh,
was like
name
one of my
drop.
favorite gigs.
Humble
I
brag.
got
Love
bored. But it was a really good gig for while it lasted.
that. That's pretty sweet. I love Grammarly. It's like one of my like tools I will die on. I'm just like
Oh yeah. They can take my money until retirement, please. Honestly, after
easy.
retirement, I'm gonna be writing
Yeah,
novels. Like, let's
the
be
emails
honest.
is like you know how many times I've been saved just like stupid email stuff that I don't check, and it's like, do you really want to send this? And I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, Grammarly's got your back.
Definitely.
How do you think AI? The second part. How do you think AI is affecting like how SEO is right now, and also like, do you have any predictions for how it might affect SEO in the future?
So right now, I think that there's a couple different things. So the main thing is that it's making Google be more strict on quality, which I think is good. It is a double-edged sword because those who actually play by the book and do things good sometimes will get penalized, like we saw in the last core update.
Yeah.
Because Google just like they don't know, like they're taking their best shot at it. So I mean, it's definitely a step in the right direction for everyone, but I mean, like they're not perfect at the end of the day. So I think that people are also trying to cut corners. Like it's just human nature that if there's a corner to be cut, like they're going to try and shave a couple of seconds off the end path.
Yeah.
So quality content is like the topsy-turvy thing that gets like put upside down when you do it in that equation. Like if people are going to have the ability to create 500 blogs for $5, like why wouldn't you? Like, and that's
Yeah.
just really bad for the entire SEO name. Because agencies like ours, who are 100% human written, 100% human edited, like do everything 100% correct, we have great results. Like all of the Google updates, we saw massive bumps in traffic, like great success through that.
That's awesome.
But people see SEO and they kind of think of like this like scammy black hat, like witchcraft pseudoscience thing, because they don't really, it's a grade line between AI SEO and like feeling like SEO doesn't really work. So it's hard to kind of like convey that. I think in the future it'll be interesting to see, especially as like, the ChatGPT Chrome extension came out that will like allow people to search natively through that. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
Yeah,
Yikes.
so like ChatGPT released a extension that you can pretty much like integrate. Like if you look at like you use Chrome.
Yeah.
So how like you'll say like your G like up in the little search bar, like so it'll just say GPT, and you can like use GPT as like just like you normally would search through Google, but you're essentially searching through ChatGPT.
So it's your engine instead of Google.
Essentially, yeah. I think that's cool. I think that's like a step in the right direction. But like I saw this post the other day from an SEO guy, and he's like, to everyone who thinks SEO is dying because of ChatGPT, like don't forget that ChatGPT has like 10 billion searches a day. Google has like 4 billion. So it's like, it's still a long ways to go. So I think it's like something we're going to see evolve similar to like we did with the iPhone or the credit card. It's like mass adoption takes decades. We're kind of in this like early trendsetter stage right now, which is like, if you're in that world, you feel like you are that world. And so it's like, it's hard to realize that there's still my aunt uncles who have never even heard of AI. And
I was going to say that. Yeah.
So it's like,
they're going to be using Google till they die.
Exactly. And it's like, if you're living in that world, you assume everyone's living in that world. It's like the kind of like the, conversational bias. It's like, okay, but we're far from that. So.
Yeah, totally. I always tell freelancers when they're freaking out that like there are going to be people who use Google until they die. And maybe Google will integrate AI, but Google will always be around. And all of these skills that you're learning, if you're providing SEO as a service, is applicable, like we said, to all of these other platforms. You can always just switch platforms, you can always just start offering a service for a different platform at the end of the day. But it's not. I do think about like the environmental implications and how much power it takes and how many like data banks we actually have for this. Like at some point, like the AI is going to max out of the infrastructure we have for it or get really close to the top end. So they're constantly building stuff to make it work. And then we're constantly feeding it power, and like new power plants have opened to power AI. And that's absurd if you think about it. So I think in the background of what we see as a user in our browser, where we type it in, we just press enter, we wait a couple seconds and something comes back, there's tons of infrastructure powering that. And most of us are not paying attention to that. Most of us don't even know it exists. And that stuff is all changing in the background too. So there's just so much we don't know, but we love to want to predict the future.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess I really do live in a world of privilege when it comes to thinking about that sort of stuff. And I think it's hard because like, especially in the US, like things, no matter your give or take on certain views, they're heading in directions whether we wanted to or not. And we can sit here and, go outside and kind of wave our fists in the sky and shout at the clouds. But at the same time, it's so hard to combat things that are out of your control, and also to have a grass is green on the other side mentality where you're like, well, I'm using this thing. It's like the Amazon debate, where you have the young college kid who's so eager to fight capitalism and live the green world, but they're getting 3 packages a day on Amazon. It's like,
Yeah.
go shop locally. So it's like there's a balance between instant gratification and how that is actually created on the back end. So it's a dilemma. It's the human dilemma.
It's the human dilemma. That's the
Yeah.
whole US. It's like convenience and affordability is our priority, but then at the end of the day, those
Instant
things will lead
gratification always
to
wins.
fuck ups. Yeah.
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 It's that world.
Yeah. Delayed gratification is not very marketable.
Welcome to my world of trying to sell SEO.
Remember when we were kids, we used to order things from catalogs? Wait in the mail for a month. If I had to wait a month for a package, I think I might forget that I even ordered the thing at this point.
I know, right?
You know?
That's so funny because that's like one of the first things my partner told me when we were in college. He goes, one of my friends, some of my friends have tried this SEO stuff with me, and the only reason I knew that you would be a good partner is because you were so fine waiting 6 months to make your first dollar. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if it's gonna come, it's gonna come, right? You just gotta wait for it.
Yeah,
sucks.
You have faith in the process.
Don't think you can have faith in nowadays. You just got to trust the process blindly and look back and be like, what is this SEO stuff? Does it actually work? Like, yep. Perfect.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you too, like, I'm a solopreneur. I always have been. I've thought about pairing up with other people. I almost started an agency this year, and then I was like, the person I was going to partner up with got accepted to grad school and decided to go to grad school, and I was like, that's not going to work.
Boring.
But I also am like, I don't really want to do that alone. But what was it like to pair up with someone else? And are you still working with that same person that you paired up with originally in college?
No. So the person I paired up with college was just like a friend of mine. His wife actually is like one of my childhood best friends. Like our parents went to high school together, grew up, we were babies together. Like I've known her my entire life. So it's kind of how we connected in college. And then, we rode that wave for 4 years with the first business. And then so many things changed. We got hit with like 3 Black Swan events in 30 days.
Wow.
And that just kind of like shook the business. And I was like, all right, like let's figure out what's next. That was kind of like when I took a year off to kind of like coast and figure out what was next. And then I kind of like serendipitously found LinkedIn and then found my new partners. So no, things changed, but still great friends with him. I see him like weekly. We golf.
Nice.
Week, so yeah.
Oh, cute. Heck yeah. I think partnering in business can be really tricky, and it feels scary. It feels intimidating.
Yeah. It sucks, like especially when they're your friends too.
Yeah.
Like, I've learned the hard way. Definitely. I've lots of pop-up. Like, I mean, obviously I had the first business was successful and this one's successful, but like there's a lot in between. It's not like I got lucky. And those were all with individual friends that were like, let's try something. I was like, cool. And then it doesn't work and you're like having to break up, essentially. It's like going through a divorce.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's so much like logistical stuff that goes into it that's outside of just the actual personal relationship that you have with that other person too. Like all of the legal stuff, appointments, how you work. Like, it's very complicated. So thanks for being transparent. I think a lot of people who are successful and have a personal brand presence on social media don't want to talk about the roller coaster that it is.
Oh no, I'm a open book.
Business is such a roller coaster, you know?
Yeah, that sucks. Like, it's hard.
It's hard. Well, on the topic of being hard and the roller coaster, a lot of our listeners are freelance writers or freelance SEO strategists, and they're kind of like starting out freelancing, or they just started offering content writing. Do you have any tips for like how you present, like at Trio SEO, how you guys present your service in a way that makes the sale or helps you get across the value of SEO?
Yeah, so it's hard. With SEO, I mean, it's hard because like a lot of it, like 90%, or like I would say probably 80% of it is strategy. So like you can be a freelance writer and be a great writer, but if you have a personal blog on the side and you don't have any strategy behind how those blogs are chosen or how they're written or the structure, like they're just not going to perform. Like it's just simple. So like with us, a lot of ours comes into case studies and our experience, and like my partners have a lot of historical success with their businesses, and like leaning into like who we are and what we've done. We always like to say that if you're new starting out in SEO, like the biggest thing I would suggest doing is like creating a site on the side that you can have that luxury to fail and have something that you can tinker with and like be fine doing all this sort of stuff and um, failing. That's the biggest thing. Like you have to be able to fail thousands of times before you can realize what not to do. It's like it's way easier to mess up your own site than it is to mess up a full-fledged business and realize that like, oh wow, like I just de-indexed a site that's making, X traffic. It's like, okay, good luck having that conversation with the client.
Yeah.
But yeah, freelancing is kind of similar. Like if we're ever hiring writers, like I don't care about your resume. I don't care about any of like that sort of stuff. Like just show me that you can write and show me that it's well written. The other thing too is like I really favor people who have great communication, like prompt to respond. If you say you're going to follow up in a day, follow up in a day. Don't make me follow up with you. And we have like really strict brand briefs for all of our clients, or like guidelines for our outlines. So if we give you an outline, stick to the outline. Like don't go off the board and feel like you're gonna like woo us by like going outside the box. It's like, no, the box is pretty tight for a reason. So
it's a strategic box.
Yeah, just following directions. I think like just being a good human and like communicating well and like doing a good job. Like it's not rocket science. I don't know.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, if you want to be a freelance writer and you know that you can meet deadlines, you can show up to a meeting on time, you can communicate with your client. If you can't do any of those things, and even if you can do those things, and you can write, like anybody can learn how to write well, especially for SEO blogs, because it's not like short form copywriting. Like it still needs to be good and clear and concise, but it's not like short form copywriting where it needs to be like designed to convert and short and fits in the wireframe that the UX designer made and like all these things. It's just, it is an article, it is long form, and it just needs to like convey the information with the right personality that you were assigned. That's it. And done
like,
on time.
The other thing too is like be open to feedback. I think that there's so many people that I've worked with over the years where they can't take feedback, and I think that feedback is me like screaming at them through Slack, and it's like, no, like we're on the same team, like we're all going in this right direction. Like just because I tell you that like, hey, it's probably not the best idea if you do XYZ, just don't do it again. Like it's great. And like especially with writers too, like we've had writers in the past where if we like, hey, the client says to do this, like please don't do this, and then they do it, and there's just like that like weird friction, and it's like they're always going to push back, or well, it'd be better if we did this. It's like you don't like some cases you just don't have that like creative freedom, and like that's okay, but like follow directions kind of goes back to that. So being able to like grow with the team, like we take a lot of pride of that with like a lot of our full-time writers, where we only like to work with writers that we look at as like, can we work with you for the next 5-10 years? And so that's how we build a team. Because if it's not a good culture fit, if it's not a good like conversational fit, like we should be able to talk freely and like feel like we're friends at the end of the day. And if it's not like that, then it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that the taking feedback thing is massive. Like when I first started freelancing, every time I would get the email notification that I got feedback from a client, I would like freak out, and then I would read it and I would get angry at every comment, and I would either beat myself up or be like, no, they're wrong. And the amount of like anger in my little body, it just is so unhelpful. Like the client wants what they want. You either need to do what the client wants or have a very informed, practical reason why you're not going to do it that way. And it needs to be to their benefit, not to yours. And you can't take it personally. Like business is not personal. When someone doesn't respond to a DM on LinkedIn, it's not personal. When someone gives you feedback, it's not personal. When someone says, I don't want to work with you anymore, it's not personal.
I know.
Like,
it is.
The majority of the time, it's just like, oh, that person was busy and didn't have time. Or you asked them for work and they didn't have any work to give to you and they didn't want to be rude to you. Or like whatever you did went against the brand guidelines they gave you. Like that's not personal. That is just strategy. That's just business. Like if they can't afford your rates, it's not because they don't like you. It's because they can't afford your rates. Like money is money. Business is business. And I think we as humans take everything personally because we have all these like little egos, you know, and you can't let your ego get preyed upon or you'll never survive, especially if you don't want to fail or you don't want to get rejected. Like, this is not the job for you if you don't want to fail.
I mean, the most difficult balance in business is balancing emotion versus logic. And sadly, the people who do it best have more logic than emotion, which doesn't actually it's not a good like leadership trait. But those who are more emotional than logic are great leaders, but not the best like business operators. So it's hard to find someone who is like can lean into both sides when the time is right.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. That's such a rough logic versus emotion. It plagues everything as human beings, even outside 100%. Of business.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. Okay, so I have one more question for you, and then we'll wrap up. But what's your best advice? Okay.
Don't worry about
good. Okay. What's your best advice for service providers, like, you know, freelance digital marketers, like we've been talking about, who might want to use SEO to attract their clients?
The main thing is having just a long-term mindset. We are really picky with who we work with, and we do a discovery audit for people who are interested in services, and that's just mainly to like do our own due diligence too. But with every conversation that we go into, it has to be a 6-month minimum, not like from a contractual basis, but like a mindset basis. We never work with people who are like, hey, like I'm really interested in this SEO thing. Like, can we test it for 30 days? It's like, no, that's not how it works.
It's not going to do anything for you to test it for 30 days.
It's like, it takes us 30 days to onboard you. Like, okay, like we'll do that and leave. So yeah, the biggest thing is just your mindset and like the expectations. I think expectations as a whole across any part of business are always good to check in on. Like not biting off more than you can chew, whether like SEO shouldn't be 80% of your marketing budget. Like you should be able to look at things as like, okay, we're going to experiment with this for 9 months and see what kind of results we get. And if it's good, like let's double down on this. And if not, like let's reel it back in and kind of go from there. The other thing too that is really, really hard to communicate with clients is that as an SEO agency, we are really good at bringing you the best traffic possible, but we're not a CRO conversion agency. We're not a email marketing agency. We're not a insert other thing you will probably need to convert that traffic into buyers agency. So like, I mean, we have it all the time where people have gobs of traffic and they're like, well, this isn't working. It's like, we just 10x your traffic. What do you mean it's not working? They're like, well, it's not converting. It's like,
that's not my job.
Sorry, that's like our job is to bring you the traffic. Like, do you have any lead magnets? How's your user experience? Like, are you updating your like, are you doing all this? Like, how's your newsletter? Like, well, we don't have a newsletter. I'm like, build a newsletter. Like, there's so many. Do you have an email welcome series? Exactly. Like, there's so many things that there's more beyond getting traffic there. And it's like, we can bring you all the traffic in the world, but if your team is just expecting this to be a like crystal ball solution to your leads, like that's not how it works. So we place a lot of emphasis early on like making sure that conversation is had, and like we provide everyone with a free UX and CRO audit to like give them like a to-do list of like, hey, did you know that your blog featured image is like 90% of your above the fold content? Like, you should probably change that. But like, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink situation. So a lot of my job is like poking and being like, hey, can you fix this? Can you please help me fix this? So
yes.
It's just kind of one of those things though. Like, people expect it to be this like thing that it's not. You just have to reset expectations going in.
Because we love instant gratification, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, why not?
Yeah, I like that 6-month mindset because you need that. SEO is a long game. And I think freelancers always underestimate how long it's going to take to onboard someone. Like, you're not going to have a blog done in the next 2 weeks if you don't have their style guide. You don't have their brand voice guide. You don't have any strategy. Like, if they don't give you anything and they're just expecting you to do stuff, like, I've had multiple clients that were like, oh yeah, I need this like sales launch done next week. And I was like, cool, you just signed your contract yesterday. You haven't sent me literally anything about your brand, no can do. Sorry, and it's hard. You have to be your own advocate. Like, you have to tell that person that actually, sorry, that's not going to work out for us. Like, this is the timeline I can realistically do this on. And I think a lot of freelancers like want to get the client in the bag so badly that they don't realize that they need to communicate those things, or that they say yes to things that are actually unrealistic, but they don't know they're unrealistic until they get into it. And so I love that you guys have, I mean, obviously you have this because you're an agency and you fucking should. People are paying you. But that system, that standard operating procedure that has a timeline, a clear timeline, that's like, first 30 days, we're onboarding you. Next 30 days, we're doing your strategy and your first blogs. Like, next 30 days, it becomes more consistent after that. And then we're on a roll. And then 6 months from now, we're going to check in with all this data. 9 months from now, we can make
Did you
tweaks.
keep our system? That's pretty much exactly what we do. We have a 30, or the first 60 days, first 30 days is onboarding and creating the brand brief, creating the sample article, getting that approved, doing the strategy, having the kickoff call. And then we do all of the month 1 and month 2 deliverables within the 60-day period. And then we meet every 90 days to go over strategy and analytics. So pretty much dialed that in from what you said.
I just made that up off the top of my head.
Yeah,
it's almost like I could start an agency.
Yeah, you should do it.
That's so funny. No, I've thought about it so many times. I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome, but also just like doing it on my own while also like running my coaching business feels like too much. But in the future, it'll probably happen. Let's be honest.
Yeah, do it. Take the leap. I don't know. I feel like it's if you find people you can trust, that's the biggest thing. Like, I got really lucky. Like, I feel like I've had a lot of luck in my life, and I fully lean into that. But like I said, you kind of have to know going in, like, trust your gut. Like, it's such a hard vibe. Yeah,
totally. Oh, I think that's true of getting clients individually too. Like, that's just true across 100%. The board. You got to trust your gut.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to fire a client.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's tough. I have templates for it if anybody wants.
Shout out the templates.
Well, Steven, how can people work with you and your agency?
You can Google Trio SEO, TRIO SEO. You can find me on LinkedIn. I always like joking that you can Google us and find us pretty easy because we're an SEO agency. So if you can't or do something wrong,
I was gonna say, like, that you said Google it.
But LinkedIn's easy. I'm on there every day and I post content daily. So you can also, one way or another, reach out to you, by me. So pretty accessible.
Yeah.